All right, I've got the microphone in my face. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's timestamp this piece. Wednesday, November 26, 2025, timestamp. Boom, there it is. Getting right into it here. Last night, I go into social media, specifically Facebook, and I talk about my experience in Afghanistan. For those who are not familiar with my experience, 9 years Marine Corps service, multiple combat deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, as an infantryman, scout sniper, squad leader, all that good stuff. I had quite the experience. And last night, what I wanted to do was to invite people to the idea that it's important to take personal responsibility. Meaning, we have to reflect on the things that have been occurring in our lives at an individual level, but also on a society, country level experience that we've had, and how these things tie into one another. All right. So our experience with Iraq and Afghanistan, for example, was supposed to be about democracy and freedom. Most people can't even define democracy anyway, or know exactly what it is or how it functions. Yet we're willing to go overseas and die for democracy, die for other people's freedoms, right? And how it was that we were led to believe that we needed to do that. And then when you go and reflect on it 20 years later, the Taliban, who we were fighting in Afghanistan, owns Afghanistan. ISIS runs Syria and Iraq, the places where my brothers and I went and bled, sweat, worked, died. And so while you're there, you realize that the mission was actually just to survive and bring everybody else home around you. And a conversation that I had with a person very important to me in my life said that one of the flaws I have with going back in the past is that we're robbing ourselves of the present. We need to move on with our lives. We can't afford to be looking back at the past. From a superficial standpoint, that's correct. I see the point in that. However, if we've never been given an opportunity to reflect on those things, for example, at the end of the day, one thing that I like to do to practice my stoicism is to reflect. At the end of the day, I remember all of my ingredients of the food I eat, for example. It's a good practice for your short-term memory, folks. And in doing so, you become more mindful of the things that you eat, why you ate them, and perhaps how you can improve the quality of your nutrient intake on a daily basis. Very basic stuff. You take the things with you that you've learned. Did you control your emotions in certain situations at work or privately? If you didn't, how can one better represent themselves and maintain the integrity of their emotional stability? Very basic stuff. And then you move on from that day and you move forward living in the moment and better equipping yourself for the future moments that occur, during which time you live with emotional control, thus staying in the moment as opposed to triggering yourself into emotional existence. Then we revert back to the unconscious or the past, the unresolved things, which is where I'm going with this. We have so many unresolved things because in society today, we live day to day on headline news. We are not afforded by the external forces that be opportunities to reflect. We are trained and programmed and propagandized into moving forward every day. You don't have time to go back and reflect on what happened, why it was, what were the results of it. So when we talk about Iraq and Afghanistan and all of these wars that America's currently in that you don't even know about, there's a reason why you don't know about it, because you failed to reflect on why it was we ended up going to those wars to begin with. And it had nothing to do with democracy and freedom. If you reflect, you understand that it did not have anything to do with those things whatsoever. I talked about the drug trade, for example. 80 to 90% of the world's heroin comes from Afghanistan, Southwest Asia. It used to be Southeast Asia. The drug and human trafficking trade are up to 5 times the size of the legitimate global economy. That's according to some experts out there. You can go do the research yourself, do your meta-analysis, and come to your own assessment. Okay, and then we combine all of our assessments. We call this a consensus. So we must reflect on these things because of the impact that it has on our culture. I talked about culture. I talked about the society and the effect that it has on our society and the family value system. All right. A prime example that I gave was that we went overseas and we were imposing our Western culture onto and values onto the family structure in Afghanistan. For example, giving women the opportunity to play sports and leisure. It sounds great, everybody. It sounds great. Give everybody a chance to be active, physically active. I'm an exercise physiologist. It's what I do by trade. I agree wholeheartedly that we should all be more active. But we have to take into consideration what the woman, how a woman is valued in their society, what her role is in ensuring the safety and well-being and health of the village, of the family and the village, the family unit. And by introducing leisure activities into things that absolutely have no bearing or no relevance to life, actual life itself. Entertainment is just that, entertainment. And there are many forms of physical activity. And in the event that you introduce leisure activities, especially ones that are insignificant in life, you take the woman and her role in that family to raise the family in the village, to hold the fort down. This is what women are doing there. And without that, you have to remember they still live in third world country. If you were to take a photograph of Alexander the Great in 323 BC and then take another one today, in certain areas of that world or in that country, it looks the same. They still live in mud huts. They operate off the land. They live off the land. It is their livelihood and well-being. The village elder runs the village, the mullah. The woman's role and impact in society there is extremely important and powerful. And we have introduced ourselves to leisure so much in excess, as a matter of fact. We've become hedonistic. We've become externalized. Take a look around you, folks. Most people living paycheck to paycheck, 80% of Americans, something like that. Are you kidding me? For as wealthy as we're supposed to be, we've externalized ourselves. We're not as productive with our time in many arenas. Now, I'm the first to admit I love watching sports, but I did get rid of my TV. I got rid of a lot of things. No video games, no TV. My leisure time is minimal. I do train. And I so happen to work with patients on a daily basis, and I do the majority of the exercises with them. So we must reflect. This is a deeper conversation. There are so many intricacies to it. We could talk about it all day, all week, all month, all year. It's necessary to reflect on these things to understand the outcome, the culture that's presented here. We have a gun culture, which I'm pro Second Amendment completely. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be buying a firearm in the very near future to protect my family, to protect my well-being, and the value of that which I created and produced. All right? You could call me paranoid, whatever the case. That's just the fact of the matter. The government's way too big. I like to protect myself from them. And the government knows this. It's important. It's way too big. It's fascist. It's communistic. It's predatory, corporate, capitalistic. We don't like that, right? We are independent-minded people. That's what we are supposed to be. And so we try to impose these external values on other people without reflecting on the impact that your material world has had on you and your spirituality or your capacity for consciousness. That consciousness being the level of awareness that an individual has, I believe, from an interdisciplinary standpoint, which makes it an intellectual consciousness. An intellectual isn't just one who gets their PhD in a very myopic or narrow-minded discipline. It's interdisciplinary that allows you to exchange ideas and communicate with and rationalize with the world around you in an effective way. Just because a person's got a PhD in astrophysics does not mean that they hold intellectual capacity in any regards to any conversation we're having. It takes an interdisciplinary approach, and that's that level of consciousness that each individual has. Keep that in mind, because the things that have happened in our past, we are suffering the karmic retribution for now, and we don't know why we're living in static. Your children are screaming out. They're anxious. They're depressed. They're taking psychotropic medications over the last 30 and 40 years. Tell me why that is. Tell me why we're increasingly upset and sick. Because we haven't reflected. We're living headline news day to day, ladies and gentlemen, just like we're living paycheck to paycheck, just like we're sicker than we've ever been. And I'll leave it at that. Look at the stats, folks. It's all out there. Peace.